Hello, miladies of inestimable value. When your mind is a galaxy, small talk feels like static. Ever walked into a room full of people and felt like you accidentally wandered onto a stage play where everyone got the script, except you? Welcome to the world of the intelligent Sigma male, a mind wired for depth, clarity, and precision, suddenly tossed into a social jungle filled with surface-level noise, inflated egos, and conversations so hollow you could hear them echo. Here's a wild fact to chew on before we dive in. Studies show that highly intelligent individuals are significantly more likely to feel drained by frequent social interaction. Not because they're antisocial, but because their brains are operating on an entirely different frequency. And when you combine that rare mental frequency with the lone wolf energy of a Sigma, let's just say, small talk doesn't stand a chance. But this isn't your typical introvert hates crowds narrative. This is deeper, sharper, more surgical. You're about to uncover 20 brutally honest, bizarrely accurate, and never-heard-before reasons why the intelligent Sigma doesn't just dislike socializing. He rejects it like a bad software update. So buckle up. This won't be polite, but it will be real. Let's dissect the quiet rebellion. Number 1. They know their presence changes the room, and they don't want that responsibility. They know their presence changes the room, and they don't want that responsibility. Sigma males are not trying to be the center of attention, but somehow they always end up becoming it. The moment they walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts, people turn, pay attention, and for reasons that even others can't explain, the energy just feels different. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's just powerful. And Sigma men are very aware of this. They've seen it happen too many times to pretend it's a coincidence. But here's the catch. They don't enjoy it. While most people crave that kind of presence, wanting to be liked, noticed, praised, the Sigma male doesn't. That spotlight, even when unspoken, feels like a burden. Because once people feel your energy shift the room, they automatically expect something from you. Leadership, insight, performance, agreement, or worse, validation. And that's exactly what Sigmas hate. They didn't walk in to lead your group chat in person. They didn't show up to become your therapist, mentor, or silent judge. They just wanted to exist, quietly and peacefully. But the problem is, their very existence isn't quiet to other people. It rattles them. It makes them question their own behavior. It draws curiosity, sometimes admiration, and often discomfort. People project things onto them. They assume confidence means arrogance. Silence means superiority. Mystery means danger. The Sigma male just wanted a drink and a seat in the corner, but now he's decoding glances, dodging weird energy, and wondering how being present became such a psychological workout. So what does he do? He avoids it altogether. He dodges the event. He skips the dinner. He leaves the group chat on read, because every time he steps into a space, he knows something will shift, and he's not always in the mood to deal with the aftermath. That constant need to hold space, to be the grounding force, to unintentionally attract eyes and energy, it becomes too heavy. Socializing isn't a break for him. It's another room where he becomes the gravity. And some days, he just wants to float in peace. Number 2, they're terrified of being spiritually dehydrated. They're terrified of being spiritually dehydrated, and for good reason. Sigma males aren't just protective of their time like everyone else says. That's surface level. What they really guard is something far more personal, their aura, their mental clarity, their peace of mind. It's not that they're afraid of people. They're afraid of what people do to their spirit without even realizing it. Being around the wrong energy for too long, needy people, fake personalities, constant complainers, attention seekers, or people who try to fix or define them, starts to chip away at who they are. One comment here, one backhanded compliment there, one manipulative question pretending to be curiosity, and suddenly, their inner balance feels off. Their mood gets weird. Their clarity fades. Their purpose feels blurry. That's what spiritual dehydration is, and to a Sigma, it's dangerous. They've learned through experience that even short bursts of the wrong company can have long-term effects. It's not always about arguments or drama. Sometimes it's just being surrounded by people who are out of alignment. People who constantly need noise, validation, chaos, gossip. People who want to pull you into the current of their own unresolved mess. Sigma males pick up on that energy fast. They absorb the undercurrents, even when nothing is said directly. And the worst part, these people often don't know they're draining you. To them, it's just socializing. But to the Sigma, it's like walking through a desert with no water and being expected to smile while his soul dries out. That's why they vanish. That's why they say no without explaining. That's why they don't answer every message, go to every party, or show up just because they're expected to. Because they know the cost. They know that every time they ignore that inner alarm, they pay with their peace. And peace, for a Sigma, is sacred. It's the foundation of everything they build, everything they believe, and everything they are. So no, they're not antisocial. They're just done trading energy for approval. They'd rather be alone, whole, and recharged than be surrounded and spiritually bone dry. Number 3, the need for constant connection feels like a modern disease. The need for constant connection feels like a modern disease to Sigma males, not because they hate people, but because they can see straight through the illusion. The world today worships hyperconnectivity. Everyone's online, available, updating, posting, replying, reacting, and constantly reaching out, like being invisible for 5 minutes is a crime. But to a Sigma, that's not connection, it's addiction with a Wi-Fi signal. They see how people have become addicted to notifications the way gamblers are addicted to slot machines. Every buzz, ding, like, and message gives a tiny dopamine hit. But for Sigmas, that constant stream of digital noise feels like a trap. It's a leash disguised as freedom. You're always reachable, always expected to respond, always plugged in. And when you're always plugged into everyone else's life, you slowly unplug from your own. That's the part most people don't get. Constant connection doesn't just eat up your time, it invades your mind. It keeps you thinking about how you're being perceived, how you're performing socially, and whether you're responding fast enough to stay relevant. Sigmas see this clearly and want no part in it. They value presence, depth, and mental stillness, not likes, follows, or streaks. They'd rather be the mystery than the headline. They don't need to remind people they exist every day. They don't need to post their breakfast, their outfit, or their thoughts to prove they're alive. In fact, they prefer to be forgotten by people who require digital proof of worth. To them, being unreachable is a form of freedom. Silence is sacred. Being offline isn't a break, it's the default setting. What most call connection, Sigmas call noise pollution. They don't want 1,000 half-baked relationships. They want real, rare ones that don't demand constant access. And if that means disappearing for a while, so be it. They'd rather live fully in their real world than exist halfway in a digital one. Constant connection is a loop they've escaped, and they're not going back because they know what it costs, and they know what it steals. Number 4. Conversations often feel like strategy games they don't want to play. Conversations often feel like strategy games. Sigma males don't want to play. Not because they're antisocial or arrogant, but because their minds are constantly 5 moves ahead. While most people are just trying to express a thought or tell a story, Sigmas are already breaking it down, seeing the patterns, predicting the subtext, and quietly analyzing where the entire exchange is heading. They can sense the motive behind your words before you even finish your sentence. And no, it's not a talent they brag about, it's exhausting. They don't just hear what you're saying, they deconstruct it. Every pause, shift in tone, choice of words, or glance away is logged and decoded in real time. They're hyper-aware of social undercurrents, emotional cues, hidden agendas, and power dynamics. So what feels like a casual conversation to others feels like a complex chess match to them. And that's exactly why they avoid it. It's not relaxing, it's mentally draining. Small talk in particular is where their boredom hits its peak. While someone is telling a recycled story about their weekend or venting about a coworker for the 5th time, the Sigma male's brain is silently checking out. He already knows where it's going. The punchline, the complaint, the relatable moment, it's all predictable. And that predictability makes the entire exchange feel meaningless. There's no new depth, no insight, no authenticity. Just social scripts being acted out like a tired play. What makes it worse is when people expect them to perform socially, laugh at the right time, add their 2 cents, pretend to be interested, That's when it stops being a conversation and starts feeling like a test, a game, a performance they didn't audition for. And if they sense manipulation, if someone's using flattery to get something or trying to guilt them into a favor or fishing for validation, the Sigma immediately shuts down internally. They're done. You won't know it, but they're already mentally walking out of the room. They don't want to win conversations. They just want truth, depth, realness. But since most social settings aren't built for that, they quietly bow out. Not because they can't play the game, but because they know it's not worth their energy. Number 5. They are hyper-aware of emotional contamination. Sigma males are hyper-aware of emotional contamination. They don't just sense the energy in a room, they absorb it, whether they want to or not. If someone's angry, fake, overly needy, attention-starved, or driven by insecurity, the Sigma picks it up instantly. Not because they're sensitive in a soft way, but because their mind is constantly tuned into the emotional temperature around them, and it doesn't take much for that atmosphere to start affecting their internal state. To most people, a negative person is just someone having a bad day. To a Sigma, it's a walking storm cloud that leaks into their own energy field. They'll walk into a room and immediately feel off, like something invisible is pressing against their focus. It's subtle but powerful. Their mind gets clouded, their motivation drops, their thoughts lose sharpness, and they realize this isn't even my emotion. I'm just absorbing someone else's chaos. That's why being around certain people feels like mental pollution. Even a quick conversation with someone who's always comparing, competing, complaining, or pretending can leave a Sigma feeling spiritually off balance. They know how much work it takes to stay grounded, clear-headed, and focused. And one careless interaction with the wrong energy can undo hours or even days of that inner work. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Sigmas have seen it happen too many times. They know which people leave them drained, agitated, or mentally scattered. So when they avoid those people, it's not because they think they're better. It's because they're trying to protect something rare. Their clarity, their peace, their alignment. Emotional contamination isn't always loud or obvious. It's the fake friend who subtly tries to one-up you. It's the group that makes everything about drama. It's the needy person who constantly pulls from your energy bank but never deposits anything back. Sigma males see these patterns instantly, and instead of confronting or fixing it, they vanish. To them, protecting their inner state is non-negotiable. If that means being misunderstood, labeled distant, or called antisocial, so be it. They'd rather be judged for their absence than emotionally infected by someone else's instability. Avoiding people isn't arrogance, it's survival. Number 6. The performance of normalcy feels like betrayal. The performance of normalcy doesn't just drain intelligent Sigma males, it betrays them. Every time they step into a social setting where they're expected to act normal, they feel the weight of having to shrink who they are. To fit in, they're supposed to keep things light, avoid depth, nod along to surface-level conversations, and suppress the parts of themselves that question everything. But Sigmas weren't wired for that. They don't do small minds, safe opinions, or forced smiles. So playing along feels fake. And for them, fake is unbearable. It starts with small things. They find themselves dumbing down their vocabulary just to avoid being called too deep or too intense. They hold back perspectives because people aren't really looking for honest dialogue. They're looking for agreement. They pretend to care about trends, office gossip, or weekend plans that mean absolutely nothing to them. And slowly, a quiet tension builds inside. Not because anyone is attacking them, but because they're watching themselves become someone they're not, just to keep the peace. That's where the betrayal hits. It's not about rejecting other people. It's about refusing to betray themselves to be accepted. For a Sigma, authenticity isn't a buzzword. It's a core value. They need to be real. They need space to speak freely, ask difficult questions, dive deep, or say, "I don't care about that," without being shamed for it. When they're forced to be agreeable for the sake of social smoothness, it's not just boring, it's soul-crushing. And the worst part is that pretending works. It gets them approval. It makes people more comfortable. But every time they conform, they feel a little more disconnected from who they are. That's why socializing often comes with a quiet resentment, not at others, but at themselves for performing. So, rather than keep pretending, they opt out. They decline the invite. They walk away from group chats. They sit in silence rather than fake interest. Not because they're arrogant or antisocial, but because they'd rather be real and alone than liked and hollow. To them, the real betrayal isn't being misunderstood by others, it's betraying themselves to be understood. Number 7. They've outgrown the myth of belonging. Sigma males have outgrown the myth of belonging. They've seen through it, and what they saw changed everything. For most people, belonging is a deep need. It means acceptance, shared laughter, group photos, and inside jokes. But for Sigmas, that kind of connection often comes with invisible strings. Most social circles, they've realized, aren't built on truth. They're built on mutual illusions, polite lies, groupthink, unspoken rules, and emotional transactions that keep the group comfortable, but never honest. Sigmas don't care for group comfort if it comes at the cost of personal truth. They notice how belonging often requires subtle compromise. You're expected to laugh at what's not funny, pretend you agree when you don't, suppress inconvenient truths, speak in coded language that keeps the peace. Sigmas see how people will twist themselves just to stay in good standing with a group, how they silence their intuition just to be liked. To a Sigma, that's a slow erosion of the soul. They're not interested in performing loyalty to people who only accept a watered-down version of them. Belonging to them isn't valuable if it demands conformity. They've experienced the hidden pressure in social groups, the pressure to be predictable, to avoid discomfort, to never say or do anything that threatens the status quo. That pressure? Sigmas don't tolerate it, they walk away from it. And no, it's not bitterness, it's clarity. They've learned that sometimes the cost of being included is higher than the price of solitude. They'd rather walk alone in full alignment than sit in a circle of people who don't really want to know them. They know that being part of a group isn't the same as being seen. Sometimes it's just being tolerated, or used, or conveniently ignored until needed. So they stop chasing inclusion. They stop trying to explain themselves. They stop forcing connection. If it's not real, they don't want it. If it's not deep, they won't stay. That's not antisocial, that's evolution. Because the Sigma doesn't need a seat at the table if the table is built on denial. They've outgrown the myth, and in doing so, they've found something far rarer than belonging: freedom. Number 8. They read people too fast, too deep. Sigma males don't just read people, they scan them with surgical precision. While most people are busy making small talk, Sigmas are silently putting the entire puzzle together. The micro-expressions, the shifts in tone, the subconscious cues, the contradictions in behavior. It doesn't take them hours or days to understand someone, it takes minutes. And once they've seen it, they can't unsee it. They can detect someone's insecurities by the way they name drop. They pick up on unresolved trauma through overreactions or forced bravado. They sense buried resentment through overly polite smiles. And intentions? They clock them almost immediately, whether someone's trying to manipulate, impress, compete, or gain validation. Most of this is unspoken, unconscious, and unintentional. But Sigmas pick it all up like background noise. Their mind is a constant radar scanning for psychological truth, and the readings are rarely wrong. This is why casual socializing feels like a chore. While others are laughing, mingling, or just vibing, the Sigma is observing patterns, contradictions, emotional inconsistencies. They're not trying to judge, they're just wired to see. And what they often see isn't pretty, it's masks, deflection, overcompensation, power games. And once they've mapped out what's beneath the surface, they lose interest in what's being said on it. They also feel the weight of that awareness. When you can see through people so quickly, it's hard to relax around them. It's hard to trust their words when your instincts have already decoded their hidden fears. It's hard to engage when you know the conversation is a cover for something deeper that no one's ready to talk about. And trying to just go with the flow when your mind is screaming this isn't real? That's exhausting. This is not a gift they brag about. It's a burden they carry. Because while others enjoy blissful ignorance, Sigmas carry the truth. They're too perceptive to get lost in the moment, too conscious to pretend. It makes them guarded, selective, and often misunderstood. People say, "You're so quiet." But the truth is, they've already read the room and there's nothing left to say. Number 9. They're tired of being the smartest person in the room. Sigma males don't crave dominance in conversations. They crave depth. And being the smartest person in the room isn't something they celebrate. It's something that slowly wears them down. Not because they're arrogant, but because it puts them in a constant position of having to carry the interaction. They often find themselves explaining concepts that feel obvious, simplifying logic just to be understood, or having to water down their insights so they don't come across as too intense. That's not stimulating, it's exhausting. It's not that they mind helping others understand things, they're naturally curious and often generous with knowledge. But when every conversation turns into a lecture, a correction, or a quiet tolerance of misinformation, the joy of connection fades. Instead of being met with challenge, they're met with blank stares, fragile egos, or shallow responses. And nothing makes a Sigma feel more alone than having to dumb down who they are just to participate. This doesn't mean they think they're better than others. It means they're tired. Tired of having to constantly restrain their thoughts to avoid offending someone. Tired of playing the mentor role when all they wanted was a peer. Tired of being the one everyone turns to for answers, but rarely having anyone ask them questions that actually spark growth. Over time, that constant imbalance starts to chip away at their interest in socializing at all. What they long for are conversations that challenge them, ones that make their brain light up. People who question their perspective, not because they're confrontational, but because they're thoughtful. People who bring new ideas to the table, not recycled trends or surface-level gossip. That's rare. And the rarer it becomes, the more the Sigma retreats into solitude, where at least their energy is safe. Because being the smartest person in the room isn't a flex for them, it's a red flag. It means this isn't the room they're meant to be in. And until they find a room that sharpens them, they'll gladly sit alone, sharp, focused, and unbothered. Number 10. Social dynamics reward the loud, not the wise. Sigma males see through the social game, and they're not impressed. In most environments, it's not the most thoughtful person who gets the spotlight, it's the loudest. Volume becomes credibility, and charisma often replaces actual depth. Social currency is handed to those who can perform confidence, not those who possess substance. And for Sigmas who value insight, depth, and truth over theatrics, this is not just frustrating, it's insulting. They've watched countless conversations where empty buzzwords get applause, where shallow takes go viral, and where loud personalities bulldoze over meaningful discussion. Meanwhile, people with real depth get ignored, interrupted, or dismissed for being too quiet or too serious. It's not that Sigmas can't play the game, they just refuse to. They know how to dominate a room, but they see no value in winning a game that rewards ego over wisdom. They speak when there's something worth saying, not just to fill the silence. They'd rather think carefully than react loudly. But in a world where fast opinions get more respect than slow wisdom, they're often overlooked, or worse, misunderstood. People confuse their silence with shyness, their restraint with passivity. But what's really happening is that they're watching the circus unfold and choosing not to join it. It's not about pride, it's about principle. Sigmas value conversations that evolve, not echo chambers filled with noise. They crave exchanges that challenge their intellect, not competitions for who can shout the loudest. But when they enter a space where the social hierarchy is built on performance instead of truth, they know it's not for them. So they bow out. They stop raising their hand in meetings where ideas are dismissed. They stop engaging in debates where nuance is unwelcome. They stop entertaining circles where the loudest voice always wins, even when it's the least informed. Because at the end of the day, Sigma males don't need to be heard to feel validated. They just need to be somewhere real. And until they find that space, silence is their protest and their power. Number 11. Their time isn't measured in hours, it's measured in mental bandwidth. For the Sigma male, time isn't just about ticking hours on a clock. It's about mental bandwidth. Every conversation, every interaction, every room they enter comes at a cost, not just in minutes, but in mental clarity. Where most people see hanging out as harmless downtime, Sigmas see it as a potential drain on the very resources that fuel their creativity, focus, and self-mastery. They don't just show up and switch off, they absorb. They scan the energy, track the emotional undercurrents, navigate social expectations, and process conversations deeply. Even when they're quiet, their mind is active, breaking down what's being said, what's not being said, and what it all means. That level of engagement takes bandwidth, and once it's burned, it doesn't regenerate instantly. It leaves them mentally cluttered, spiritually fatigued, and sometimes physically drained. This is why they're so selective. It's not antisocial behavior, it's resource management. Just like an artist protects their canvas from meaningless strokes, a Sigma protects his inner world from needless noise. His mind is his workshop, his solitude is sacred, and any interaction that doesn't sharpen him, uplift him, or spark something real feels like a robbery of energy he can't afford to waste. When others invite them to just hang out, they don't mean any harm. But for a Sigma, it's never just anything. It's a trade. Time spent socializing is time not spent building, reflecting, reading, creating, evolving. And if the interaction doesn't match the weight of that sacrifice, it's not worth it. They understand something most don't. Energy is a currency, and focus is finite. They don't measure time by the clock. They measure it by how much it costs them mentally. That's why Sigmas tend to keep their circle tight, their conversations purposeful, and their presence rare. Not because they think they're better than anyone, but because they know exactly what their energy is worth, and they refuse to spend it recklessly. Number 12. They detest forced synchronization. Sigma males have no patience for forced synchronization. They see right through the social dance where everyone subtly adjusts their tone, mood, and opinions just to keep the vibe consistent. The fake laughs, the forced enthusiasm, the predictable talking points. It all feels like performance art designed to preserve comfort, not authenticity. And for Sigmas, who value raw, unfiltered truth above all else, that kind of environment is suffocating. They don't believe in adjusting themselves just to keep the peace or match the mood. They won't fake interest in shallow conversations. They won't mirror someone's energy just to seem agreeable. They won't suppress their natural depth just to avoid making others uncomfortable. Sigmas don't walk into a room looking to blend in. They walk in as themselves, and if the room can't handle it, they'll gladly walk out. To them, this constant pressure to align with the group, to nod along when you don't agree, to smile when you feel disconnected, to downplay your insight so others don't feel threatened, is soul-warping. It's emotional camouflage, and Sigmas refuse to wear it. They'd rather be misunderstood and alone than accepted for a version of themselves that isn't real. They prefer asymmetry. They're fine with differences, contradictions, and complexity. They don't need everyone to be on the same page. They just need people to be on their own page, unapologetically. In fact, they're most alive in conversations where people respectfully disagree, hold space for nuance, and don't feel the need to water down who they are. But those moments are rare because most social spaces aren't designed for authenticity. They're designed for cohesion. That's why Sigmas often stay away. Not because they're shy, not because they're antisocial, but because syncing up just for the sake of group comfort feels like spiritual treason. They're not looking for people to vibe with. They're looking for people who are real, even if they're wildly different. And if they can't find that, solitude will always be their sanctuary. Solitude isn't their escape, it's their alignment. For intelligent Sigma males, socializing isn't just a casual pastime, it's a high-stakes, energetic investment. While the world celebrates connection for connection's sake, Sigmas demand meaning, substance, and authenticity. They're not wired for surface-level interactions, small talk, or ego-driven exchanges. They see too much, feel too deeply, and process too quickly to tolerate the slow, performative rhythm of most social settings. To them, most people aren't interacting, they're role-playing. Most conversations aren't exchanges, they're performances. And most social rituals aren't genuine, they're disguised conformity. When you're someone who craves truth more than approval, silence becomes a sanctuary, not a punishment. That's why Sigmas often disappear from the noise, not because they think they're better, but because they refuse to betray who they are. They'd rather sit in the discomfort of their own thoughts than the false comfort of forced connection. They're not trying to impress, they're not trying to fit in. They're trying to stay real in a world that constantly rewards the fake. So when you see a Sigma in solitude, don't mistake it for loneliness. It's clarity, it's discipline, it's protection. Because for them, preserving their peace, energy, and mind is more important than blending into spaces that drain them. They don't hate people, they just hate pretending. And in a world where masks are common and truth is rare, solitude isn't their weakness, it's their power. If this hit different, you already know you're not like everyone else. And that's exactly the point. So if you found value in this, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button and join a space where authenticity, depth, and real talk actually matter. Like the video if it spoke to you. Drop a comment below. What part hit the hardest or made you feel seen? And if you know someone else who's wired like this, share it with them. Let them know they're not crazy. They're just rare. Stay sharp, stay real, and I'll see you in the next one.